Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week, 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. What is that program where they all nod their heads
Muppet Show. It's the Muppet Show where they all like one after the other and they all like...
I was
going to say the Brady Bunch, but that's too...
Yeah. Do you know what? I saw a joke online. I have to tell, I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with our actual podcast, but you have to bear with me. It was the Brady Bunch, like the 9 squares of Brady Bunch. And then it was like, the thing underneath was, why can no one explain why the Brady Bunch had Zoom back in the 70s?
Oh, that's a point. Yeah.
Time travel.
Totally knew about Zoom back in the 70s.
Anyway, hi everybody.
Hi, welcome to the Spa Girls podcast. Thanks for joining
That's
us.
Trudy J. I'm Cheryl.
I'm Wendy.
I'm Shar, and that's a new record for getting distracted right from the very
Right from the
first.
start. But we're in lockdown again, so what are you?
Yeah. Do you like my teddies?
Yes. So
Yeah,
anyone
My
who's watching the
grandchildren's
video,
teddies?
Oh, they're very
be able to
cute.
see the teddies. But it looks like a teddy crown. Whenever Wendy leans forward, she looks like.
Yeah.
So you have to watch
I'm Queen
this.
Teddy.
You have to watch this episode on the YouTube channel, which we have. So go to YouTube and find the Spa Girls podcast and listen to us there. So
Watch us
today
be
we're going to talk about newsletters, and it's just what's working for us. We're going to each talk about the things that we've got, what we use and how we use them and what works and what we've noticed and things like that. So just so you can take away some of these things and try them for yourself, I guess.
All opinions expressed are personal to us and individual to our books, and may or may not be applicable. I'm trying to work out a disclaimer here, but yeah, our experiences.
Yeah, it's just what we do. It's So who wants to start? Cheryl?
Cheryl,
All
go
right.
share.
All right, so I do my newsletter through Mailerlite, which I love. I did start out with Mailchimp, but for me, I find Mailerlite a lot easier to work with. And more responsive. I had lots of glitches with Mailerlite, and I don't do glitches seriously. If anything's going to stop me, it's technology. So I have a reasonable size mailing list, which was actually a lot better. And I was just telling the girls before, an interesting thing, I had quite a few people that weren't actually responding to the emails. So I still had the free version of Mailchimp. So I took it was nearly 2,000 people off my list, and I put them into Mailchimp. So when I send a newsletter in Mailerlite, I actually copy a lot of it and put that into a Mailchimp newsletter, send them both at the same time or about a day apart, just to see what would happen. Because I think most of us, if you had 2,000 people and you just cut them, that would be like, cutting a vein or something. So I thought this would be a kind of like a stepping stone to see what would happen. So every month I will delete a few, but every month I'm surprised by how many people are actually engaging again. So it is, that's just a little experiment. History.
So the ones that reply in your MailChimp account that you actually get engagement with, do you put them back into Mailerlite and count them as engaged again?
No, because it's kind of like a little experiment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how many months this happens. If I'm setting the same content or almost the same content, what that is doing to them. So is it just something to do with the header that is inspiring them, or is it actually to do with the content or the tweaks that I've done in the content? So it's not a terribly time consuming thing. It's just something that I don't even look at once I've sent the email. I look at it when I'm going to send the next one.
It could even be to do with the deliverability between MailChimp versus Mailerlite.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a huge uptake, but it is something. So that's the trigger in my head that says, well, maybe it would have been rash to say, see you later, because you're not, buying all my books or buying whatever I'm putting in my newsletter, or even actually just interacting with me, which is what I'm trying to do a bit more of.
How often do you send it?
So I was sending once a month, and I did that pretty much from the get-go. Now I send twice a month. So and I actually have been staggering the days so that it's not always on the same day. So I know that there's forum against that sort of thing, but it seems to be working quite well. I seem to have an above average click open rate and getting quite a few click-throughs. So yeah, I think I am very, very guilty of the fact that I have one newsletter that I send out instead of two, because I have two pen names.
Yeah.
You mean in terms of for
know
different audiences?
I know that they should be split. I understand that they should be split, and yet still not so invested in it, because I feel like people will have the newsletter with a bit of content for each, and then they will decide. So whether I'm losing people because of it, I don't really know, but I'm finding that my unsubscribes and my new subscribes are kind of balancing each other out. So every month my newsletter list is about the same.
So just to clarify for anybody new, you're writing Cheryl Phipps writes romance and CA Phipps writes cozy mystery. So it is romance, and sweet romance. So it's it is slightly different audiences. So yeah.
The other thing you can do, and I don't know if you can do it on Mailerlite, is actually put in different content, like as in if you put tags on them. Can you do that and put tags on different people, so you can say this person is someone for my
Trudy, I have no idea. No doubt. I do have no idea, but I have no doubt in my mind that is a possibility.
Yeah. But then she would have to email the whole newsletter list and say, can you please reply to me if you are cozy, if you are romance. So that's the first step she would have to take, because then it's the only way she's going to be able to separate it. So that in itself is a whole.
And I did do that. I did try that last year, I think, and I didn't get a very big response. And I was like, you know what? You can't be bothered, neither can I.
No. I'm not playing your game. I'm not going to play your games, buddy.
I'm not going to guess.
And actually, I think that's a really good point. We've only got so much time in the day and so many spoons to spend on newsletters. And you know what? If you've got two pen names and it's the choice of not doing anything or doing one to both, do the one to both. Like, cut yourself some slack here, people.
And to be honest, I have two subscribing lists. So they are completely separate. As I say, I send to everybody, but in the future, I now have that facility that I will be able to do that. Yeah. As other people perhaps fall away, it will become more clear that this is the dividing line. And then people can subscribe to both lists if they want to.
Do you ever find that, so for and I don't know if you've paid attention to this, but when you're sending content that's mostly about your cozy mysteries versus your romances, do you get a higher click rate, a higher open rate and click-through rate for one versus the other, or is it?
I do. I cannot tell a lie. Most of the money that I am earning and most of the responses to my emails are for my cozy mysteries.
Okay. Yeah.
But having said that, I have also been quite poor in giving my romance readers more content. It's all been about the cozies because they've done so well.
Well, that's because they're so good.
Thank you. So now I'm trying to balance that out a little bit, and then as I go forward, I'll try and do maybe one romance a year, and the others will be cozy mysteries. And then, like I say, down the track, the division will probably be clearer.
Okay.
It's tough writing across genres and trying to target specific, this is the same for me.
So what kind of content are you providing, Cheryl?
So I am putting in some excerpts when I have nothing else. I've got new releases, I've got cover reveals. You guys are probably all going to say the same thing about that sort of stuff. I also do maybe like a giveaway. The giveaways that I've done over the last couple of weeks, so one fortnight I did one for romance, and one fortnight I did one for cozies, and did those through my Facebook pages as well to coincide. I haven't done any giveaways since probably Christmas because for a start it was too difficult with lockdown, and also I don't know how well they do. To be fair, I think generally speaking, people that read my stuff anyway want books. So I also have a couple of authors that I align myself with, that I will promote anything free that they've got, or if they've got a sale, or if they've got a new release. So
do you do that in conjunction with them, or do you just kind of
a bit of both? A bit of both. Like sometimes I'll just promote. I see when he's got something coming out for free, so I might just slap hers in there. fill up some
slap
space.
it in.
You just feel sorry for me, you know, like, oh, it's
yeah.
nice.
Oh yeah, like I would feel sorry for you, mate. But but otherwise, you know, like one person that springs to mind is Sarah Rosette, and I align myself quite easily to hers. We do have slightly different styles, or maybe Morgana best, but I will contact them, or they will contact me, and yeah, it's sort of just reciprocated, which is really nice, which means I get a little taste of their newsletter list and they get a taste of mine.
And it's really like you mentioned that it's about they're similar to you, right? That no point in putting something in there that's like the wrong genre.
I know people that do witchy cozies. That's not what I write.
No.
Different audience.
So I just don't think it's right. You know, I could give it a go, but no, I just don't.
Would it be like Trudy putting you in her newsletter? It's not. It's not going to be the same group, is it? No. Same people. They're going to go, what?
Yeah, like, it'll mess up your also boughts on Amazon, but it's if some of them are interested, then they go and buy. Suddenly you've got the wrong stuff in your also boughts, and it's.
I think it's very good, especially when you're starting out, to get this right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are things to try that aren't going to affect you, but this probably could. So, choose the right people.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. So we've talked about...
I think what you've said on that, touch on that, it has to be give and take, eh? If you're going to promote someone else, then they need to promote you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't always do that. Sometimes if I'm wanting to get an author in my author books or kind of promote, I'll just promote their stuff just because
absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with that, and they're hardly going to complain. Right?
No, exactly right. Like it's All right. So is there any other tips or things that you do, Cheryl, that you think people would
try to make the newsletter about my readers rather than myself? Like I will give them a snippet of my life, especially like at the moment I've been crazy with baking and knitting and just weird stuff. Well, no, that's not true. I've always been a baker, but not so much a knitter since my kids are wee. But, you know, like if you've got something else to show people that's who you are, then that's great. But I try to stay away from the COVID stuff. Just in a general way, like how are you doing? And at the end, you know, stay safe, that sort of thing. But I'm trying to make it uplifting. You know, like I'm giving you something, and how do you feel about that kind of thing?
Yeah.
No, that's important at the moment to make it uplifting.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. It's hard. Okay, so if we move on to who wants to go next?
I'll talk to Mailchimp. So I look after Wendy's newsletter. When I say look after, I help her with her newsletters. I like Mailchimp, but I've been using it for years, and I think if you're starting out and you're listening to this, probably Mailerlite would be the way to go in terms of, just as Cheryl's mentioned, it's much more user friendly in terms of design. But I really like Mailchimp, but I know it well, and I have a gut feeling that probably deliverability is better on Mailchimp. It's the old story. I think you tend to pay for what you get in a lot of ways. And I have heard of a number of authors and I'm talking huge lists here, like in the over, tens and tens and tens of thousands, which isn't any of us, that noticed a distinct drop in terms of deliverability. And by that, I mean people actually getting the newsletter. Not going into spam folders or promotions folders or whatever, from Mailchimp, from Mailerlite, and so they went back to Mailchimp, which is a lot more costly. But I wouldn't let that stop you using Mailerlite by any stretch. There's also Mad Mimi, which you don't hear about so much these days, but that's also a very nice drag and drop intuitive design, and most of them have a certain amount of subscribers free that will let you level to try it. So I would recommend for anybody starting, try them all and just see how you go and just send it to yourself.
The only thing with the free ones, and this is something when I was looking around and thinking of switching, was that they say that the free ones have lower deliverability rates because anyone can go in there and they're selling, they've got this, as long as they're under a certain amount, like is it 1,000 on Mailchimp?
Yeah.
I think it used to be 2,000. I think it's gone down to 1 now, but that's another issue. So that was something that I took into account, is that you get people with crappy lists who are using Mailchimp or wherever, send out these lists, and then that lowers the overall deliverability rates of those providers. And that was something else that
I mean, I think you can get, I mean, absolutely, but I just so the most important thing is actually when you're starting is to have a newsletter of some kind, and that is not one that you send out from your Outlook or your Gmail address yourself. It has to be through a provider, and also you need to have a website address. By that I mean, for example, wendy@wendyvalor.com, not Wendy's Gmail address. Gmail, so you make sure the sender is from your domain, and that's really, really important. Probably the most important thing for deliverability. And just talking about the pandemic, COVID, those kind of words, do not use those in your subject lines, because that will get you put immediately into spam. So just kind of be mindful about that. And I would try and not use it in the body of the email as well. We talk about, these crazy times, chaotic times, difficult times. We all know what we're talking about. Just, you don't have to.
Spell
I would, try as much as you can not to use those. That's just a little tip. The other thing I like about Mailchimp is it gives you lots of ways of trying out different subject lines. This is when you've got a paid account, and lets you do split testing very easily, and it will kind of give you so a recommendation is to use an emoji in the subject line, but only one, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 1, which I thought was really interesting. And they have all kinds of massive analytics, and you can really dive deep if this is what turns you on.
Is that inside the Mailchimp
inside the Mailchimp platform as well?
Advice.
So as you're putting in the subject line, it will kind of give you little recommendations maybe there's too many emojis there, kind of thing. And
interesting. Okay, that's
Mailerlite will do that. They'll give you a tick.
So they're getting smarter themselves, and I think it's in their interests to it's in everybody's interest to get good deliverability on these things. So in terms of Wendy, similar to Cheryl in that she's writing historical romance, she's writing contemporary romance, same heat levels, but they are different audiences. And so she has an organic list that people sign up in the back of her book, so they've read her books, and they will when they sign up, they have a selection of historical. I mostly read historical, I mostly read contemporary, or I read both. And that way, as soon as they sign up, we know what they're reading, and that's really good to get from the start. And I did that right from day one, and that was a good move. Just saying.
Pat yourself on the back.
Pat myself on the back for that one. In terms of building your newsletter list, we call them newsletter promotions. So you can join different things. Like there's a company called Book Sweeps that runs, and you have to be a little bit careful about getting subscribers this way, but they are reputable, and we've had actually good success with them. So caveat to that, nothing is as good as the person that signs up through reading one of your books. That's the most quality subscriber. They're the gold star. The giveaways tend to be people that want the giveaway first, so they're much colder, and so I always ring fence those. So Wendy's got a number of different lists, so I separate out the people that have come into her list through giveaways, contemporary giveaways, and then historical giveaways. And that way it kind of weeds. It's like we're in New Zealand and there's a lot of sheep here, so I think of it's like sheep in those gates that you sort the sheep out kind of thing. And I mean that in a loving way, because I like sheep. They're very nice animals. And so it's not being disrespectful, but it's just the way I just kind of picture these different pens. And she's got a pen for contemporary romance readers that she's got through giveaway. She's got a pen for historical readers, and she's got her organic list. And then anything that she runs, we might do different promotions with other authors, for example, and it might be through a book funnel giveaway, like special things like that. I will also set up a separate list for those people. Then I put them through a cycle, like a washing machine, a rinse and repeat cycle of different things, as a way of ascertaining, are they going to start opening emails? And that way it keeps her organic list is pristine, and it has an enormously high click-through and open rate. Like we're talking 70% open rate, 40% click-through rate. So to me,
that's just the organics, yeah?
That's just the organics. And
so you're still sending to the others at the same time?
Still sending, but I send different content to them. And so we try, and I say this, we try, but, look.
Do you take off the... Oh, sorry,
I was just going to say our aim is to send it twice a month, but probably once a month is realistic, or once every 3 weeks. And Wendy and I are going to help each other get better with this. We had at some point we had a schedule, but
I don't know where that went.
Yeah,
we'll be better. We'll be better.
But it's a work in. We're all work in progress, and I think you can make it as complicated or as not. It is more complicated when you've got two genres that you're writing. I will say that out of the gate. It just is, but there are ways of managing it. And so, for example, when Wendy has a new release in her contemporary romance, I will send that to her organic people, the ones that have selected either contemporary or I read both, and obviously I'll send it to her contemporary, that pen of the contemporary, what I call giveaway people. With the historical people, they'll get a different newsletter, often the same sort of intro letter from Wendy at the top, but I will talk about a historical backlist. I will still put the contemporary new release on there because we promised them when they signed up they would learn about new releases, but it doesn't have as big a role. So it's kind of like I'll do what they call a 2-column, and so on one side it'll have the contemporary romance and I'll have the cover and I'll still have the blurb, and often she'll pick up readers that way, and then I'll also have a historical that I'm featuring. So I definitely target them slightly differently. Because again, on deliverability, you want people to reply or to click, because that improves it. They get kind of at the back end of all these mailing lists, no matter who you use. The more interaction people have with that email, the more likely they are to get it in the future. And so there's no point in sending an email that all it talks about is contemporary romance to somebody that only reads Regency. They might open it because it's from Wendy, but they're not going to click on anything in there. And that's what you want them to do. You want them to not just open, but click on something. And the other thing that I think Wendy's been good at doing is giveaways that involve something for the people to do. By that I mean what's been popular, naming a pet dog, naming a child, what's your favorite name, Alice, blah, like giving them 4 options. Anything like that gets people responding to click. Either they'll hit the reply button, and so you have to be prepared for that, or often I'll funnel them through to Facebook to interact on the Facebook post, because that kind of gets me more. Again, it's anything that they click on that they go somewhere, or we do a poll in there, and I set up and this is set up landing pages for each. There is no wrong answer to these polls and giveaways, can I just say that? So if they click on answer A, whatever answer A is, it goes to a specific page on her website that says, great answer, love that answer, thank you so much, you're in the drawer. Same for B, same for answer C. So there, and I think all of these things, it sounds complex, and it's not something you can dash off in 5 minutes, but I think it works to always go for quality over quantity. And I think it can be really easy to get caught up into the numbers when you're starting out, like so-and-so has got 10,000 people, or Wendy hasn't got 10,000 people in her mailing list, she's got less than that, she's got over 5, but she's been one of the, she's up there in terms of percent, on the top percent of, and I can say this because I'm not Wendy, but what works, but having that open rate is better on a list of say 10,000 than it is on a list of 50,000 that you're paying big bucks for, and only getting a 20 or 30% open rate. It's quality.
Well, always. Size does not matter.
No. Industry standard open
in
rate.
this situation, it doesn't.
No.
Industry standard open rates are like below 10% on mailing lists.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. But authors, because we have this kind of ability to tell stories and encourage people into our world,
with them.
There is an expectation that we can get those higher open rates.
And I would say, to be fair on that personal note, there's different people different authors are comfortable with different giving away kind of stuff for themselves. Wendy does a nice job, I think, of like, she talks about her family, she talks about her grandkids, I'm talking about Wendy as if she's not even here. I apologize. But she's also not she's not bringing any drama into it, and like Cheryl's saying, she's keeping it upbeat and positive but empathetic. Like, we're all like, nobody's having a great time of anything at the moment, you know, and so we all know that. But
also, I think your newsletter has got to be like what your books are.
Yeah,
and I don't bring a whole lot of angst to my books, and I don't bring a lot of drama. There's a lot of humour, so I'll write the content for it to be, you know, humorous and light and family oriented,
and kind of self-deprecating, and that kind of humour that we know, you know, exactly.
Kiwi humour.
And that's another thing. Use anything like that that's slightly out of, you know, like recipes have gone really well. Favorite recipes, as in asking people.
A little video of yourself is always a good one. You know, like a little video. Oh, hey, how are you? Great time. Everyone's here under my titties. You see that?
So we're not sending the video out to their mailbox like some kind of weird stalker. What we're doing is saying, hey, I've done a little video on Facebook, and I'll put the link to that Facebook post to click there to see it. You know, and again, it's about getting interaction is really important. But then we have also experimented with sending out plain text as well, no images for a new release, and that worked surprisingly well. All my carefully crafted pretty pictures, and it was just like, hey, it was actually a box set, and it was this is out. It actually hasn't got any reviews on that particular box set. Would really appreciate it, and here it is, and that was stunningly successful. So
you say
try the personal note as well. That was okay. Well, that took me 5 minutes. Really. So mix it up a bit. I think that's the other thing I'd say. Mix it up a bit. And also, if you're starting out, subscribe to authors in your in the genre that you're writing, and just see what they're doing.
Yeah, that's really good.
Some turn me off, like some I have a folder in my Outlook of newsletter exemplars, so if I'm feeling a bit kind of uninspired, I'll quickly click through there. And I'm not talking about copying, but I'm talking about things that have really struck me as I opened it, and I look back and what was it? What got me? I mean, we've talked about her before, but Penny Reid is hilarious. And Lucy Score
is just hilarious.
You want to be when you read those newsletters, you know what the writing is going to be
giggling.
like.
I tell you.
Yeah,
yes,
I think
so
Penny's subject line is usually, or her little that first line, the preview line is usually or this is going to be the best newsletter you've ever read, kind of.
Yeah, it's exactly like Lucy's is the same, and I'm just like, I have to read on now because it's just like something on.
Yeah.
How about you, Trudels? What do you got going on with yours?
I just want to say about those two first. It's about letting their personality shine through.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to let your personality. Unless you're a serial killer stalker, and then you should probably hide that a little.
That would be making an interesting newsletter.
Well, it would, yeah.
I want to kill you.
Especially if you write thrillers. Oh, that'd be really good. It could work, you know, but I don't write thrillers.
Actually, I'd like to make that caveat. Also, don't be creepy. Particularly if you're a male romance writer, don't be writing as a female, asking them about their deepest desires. That's creepy and weird, and yes, people have done it, and don't do it.
No.
Yeah. That's it.
We're saying that. That's a Spa Girls edict. Don't be creepy and weird. Yeah.
Don't be creepy and weird. I don't know. I'm a bit weird.
Oh, you are. That's true.
You're not creepy.
But you're not creepy.
I try not to be creepy most of the time.
No, you're not creepy.
Go on then, weirdo girl.
Okay.
Lay it on us.
Lay it on you. All right. So I just wanted to say some Oh, where do I start? Okay, I'll just start at the beginning, and then I've been taking notes as everyone's been talking about things that I want us to talk about as well.
She's noticing what we're saying.
I know, I'm paying attention.
Wow.
It is quite unusual. I never listen to you guys.
Yeah.
I did admit to Wendy earlier that I hadn't signed up to a newsletter, and she's been giving me crap about it ever since.
Because we always support each other.
Yeah.
I thought that was my gig. Hey,
very supportive. The fact that you were like attacking me like this, though, Wendy. Did anyone even put
all right, bring it back. Bring it back.
Let's go, Shriddles. Let's go.
Anyway, back to me.
Lay it on us.
All right, so I have my newsletter. I send it out weekly. I just think.
How long have you been doing that for?
I can't remember. Like last year, I think I decided to send it weekly, and it seemed hard work. It seemed like it was a hurdle to get over, and now I have gotten like it's kind of what you were talking about before. It's like better to send a newsletter than to send nothing. And I think what I had been doing was like, oh, well, I can't do it because it's such all this big effort and I'm doing all this stuff. And now I'm just like, no, I just make it easy for myself. I just send it, and if it's a week that I'm just like, oh my god, I'm really busy, I'll just send something really simple. I'll just grab an excerpt from one of my books, say, hey, I'm busy this week, but hey, look, I'm giving you an exclusive excerpt from this book. If you've never read it, you can, and that kind of thing. And that just, and people really like that. Like I get clicks, I get interaction. Do
you send it on the same day, Trudy?
I generally try and do it on a Friday. So I would like to try sending on different days. I do think that actually is quite good. Like I've heard people talk about that before, and I think they talk about getting different interaction on different days, and I think that's a definitely good thing to try. But it's just in terms of my schedule, the idea of trying to do it on different days of the week. I have set things that I do on set days, and that makes me really crazy. And
I think I think we can understand that is probably a good practice to do, is to try sending it, but you've also, again, going back to what works for you, honor yourself and don't make it hard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose I could do it on a certain day and then schedule it later in the week or something. I mean, there's ways around it, but I just haven't. And then what content? So I did a course with Larissa Reynolds a couple of years ago, and we've had her on the podcast, and she's very much about the idea of reader-focused content, and also talking about finding the elements of your books that will attract your readers and why that. So I'm just trying to think along those lines, and to be fair, mostly recently what I've been doing is excerpts, providing content, so or reminding them of things that they've got for free for me. So I have a lot of short stories. I have several novellas that I have written over the course of my career for people that they get, and they can get as they come into my newsletter list. But just some people have arrived from other places and they haven't got that content, so I'll just remind them about it. So that kind of thing, like just trying to provide them as much content as I possibly can. And I have done competitions. I stopped doing them as often because I don't like going to the post office. I don't know why, but for competitions it's really interesting, because Cheryl was saying she finds that her people like the books more. Well, I've tried to give books away. I've given books, I did one competition that was like 6 books that were, really popular authors in a similar genre, things like that, and it's never as popular as a bar of chocolate. Honest to God, my people like chocolate.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's funny, but that's it. So I do tend to kind of incorporate New Zealandy things and encourage that kind of aspect, and giving away chocolate and that sort of thing. It is easier to give away books because you can just send them to a link and away you go, but it doesn't actually get as, my readers or my list don't tend to be as enthusiastic about that. As I don't know whether they don't want to read my books, or maybe they've all just read my books. I like to think
that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe they just don't want to. Anyway, so there was that, and then what else do I put in content wise? I've done videos. This is interesting because you were saying, Shah, that you do videos that you put into Facebook and you link to that. I have actually embedded the video, like do it up on YouTube. I mean, it's not actually you click on the video and get to YouTube, but I put the video on YouTube as a private video, and then I put it, and so you get the video pictured in your email, and there's like and so you just click the button and it takes you through. I haven't done a video in a while, but what I did notice, so I've done things like book sweeps. I've done other, like those kind of ones where you get this bulk email list. But what used to happen before the GD something blah blah, what's the initials? I can never remember. GDPR? Is that the one?
I think that's right. Yeah,
it came in something like that. Whatever. And you used to get like these these giveaways where there'd be like 40 authors, and the prize would be a book from each of those people, and then that 40 authors would all get that list. Right? So it'd be a really cold list, and then that person, those people on that list would suddenly get 40 emails from all those authors. And I was horrified when I realized that that's actually how it worked. I for the first time, I'd done my second competition that I did like that, I actually signed up for it and then got these 40 emails, and I was like, well, that was horrific. I'm not surprised if these people unsubscribed to every single one of those, but I did notice some of them were really boring and a lot of them were very similar, but there were a couple that stood out for me. And one of the ones that stood out was an author who'd done a video, because it was so different to the others. And I did find that when I have done videos for my list, they do interact with it and they get like nice comments back, and they feel a little bit more like they've got that interaction. And there's people who don't like Facebook, there's people who won't go there and see those videos that you do in that environment.
Absolutely.
So I just felt like something to try is definitely doing those little videos like that. So I found that worked for me in terms of creating that interaction, but also just you want to make your readers feel like they know you and feel some sort of loyalty to you and feel that connection. And I think a video is a nice way to do that.
So you just did it on your phone? Like that's all you need, isn't it? Just a phone recording?
I went and stood outside and held my phone up and said, oh, this is where I live, and or, you know, I've done lots of videos. I can't remember specifically what the one was that I used for that.
I get good relation when people relate well to videos.
I think you're really good at videos, Wendy.
We'll try that. So watch out. If you're on Wendy's newsletter list, we're going to do that embedded video.
Because Wendy's good with the video. She does a lot of them on Facebook. If anyone ever wants to see some good videos of an author interacting, I think they're really good. Open rates. So I do this weird thing. So I'm on Active Campaign, which is more expensive.
Weird thing.
So why Active Campaign? Tell us why.
So I was on Mailerlite, and then I think it was last year sometime, Mark Dawson had a big freak out. He moved from Mailchimp to Mailerlite and then found that his discoverability or his open rates dropped significantly. And then I did a bit of research into it. And I think Mailerlite had a couple of issues previously.
They had a couple of stumbles along the way.
They did stumble along the way. And I love the Mailerlite backend. I think it's amazing. It's like 100 times better than anything else.
I think it's important your backend's in good shape.
Yes. Yeah, it is important. Thanks, Wendy. I've used Mailchimp, I've used Mailerlite, and I've used Active Campaign. And Mailerlite is definitely the back end, has the most beautiful back end. But I got freaked out by that deliverability stuff. And I had been originally with Active Campaign, decided they were too expensive, moved to Mailerlite, and then I moved back to Active Campaign because I'm like that, crazy and insane.
Yes, you are.
But I can't remember my point. Oh, open rates. Okay, so when I moved back to Active Campaign, I spent, so you get Active Campaign people in Australia talk you through how to set everything up properly.
Yeah, it's not quite as drag and droppy, is it? Like it needs quite a bit more.
But they have, it is. I mean, it is somewhat drag and droppy, but they've improved it from what it used to be. But it's quite a powerful system in that you can do all sorts of things in the back end that just run. And so what I have in there is the ability, or it is set up so that I have a group called Superfans. I have a group called Middle Lane, which is a nod to Larissa Reynolds. And then I have a group called my Inactive Peeps. And that changes. So the Superfans are people who have clicked a certain number of times, have opened emails, or they've clicked on something in the email. They get points for how many times they do that. And if they fall below a certain number of times clicking, they fall back into the middle lane people. And then, so these are kind of moving around lists. It's a bit scary, and I don't like to touch any of it because it's set up without.
So it's all done automatically.
Yeah, so it's all done automatically. It's all working in the background, and so it's not a static list that I have the same people on it each time. I can see how many people are in my Superfans list, and it gives me an indication of how many people are engaging at that level. And then at the middle lane level and at the inactive level. And the inactive people, I can't remember the exact setup, but it was somewhere between 8 to 12 months that they hadn't done anything. They hadn't opened an email, they hadn't interacted with me at all. And so they get to that list and then they're inactive. But what I find is that every month, some people from that inactive list will click. And it would be a small percentage. It's like, say, maybe 5% or something, but they will click. And so I don't want to get rid of them entirely,
I hear.
What Cheryl was saying.
Yeah, and it's kind of, so people do interact, but are just not, and then they would, as soon as they interact, they move up to middle lane, like that changes in this, and so the inactive peeps are always the ones who've never interacted down the bottom, and then as soon as they interact, they move up to the next list, and then it's all down.
I mean, I'm in the middle. At least.
Well, I'm going to go check on you, buddy. See
I better start
opening them. Yeah, you're probably in my inactive list.
I'm like delete.
Yeah, exactly. You're deleting me all the time. So much for the opening my emails. So I have deleted, like Cheryl. I mean, I deleted like about 3,000 people at one point. Just that was when I was moving to Active Campaign, and I wanted to have fewer people on there, so it would cost me less. And I just knew that these were people who hadn't interacted with me for over a year. On Mailerlite, and I just like, well, what's the point?
No point.
There's no point in interacting. I want to have an active list
because it's more expensive.
Yeah,
more people you have. Right.
Yeah. So it's like, I think 5,000 was the limit. It goes from 5,000, and then the next level up is 10,000. So
wow,
you kind of these big gaps between things. So you kind of want to be within. Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say Active Campaign is for bigger businesses. It's for like it's a
the Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
I know a lot of authors who use it.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying probably if you're starting off, I wouldn't start there.
No, don't start there. No, it's definitely not something. I would start definitely Mailerlite or Mailchimp are good beginner places. There's another, I'm trying to remember what it was. Someone else was talking, a Flow something.
Yeah,
a new
Flow
Desk. I think it was a new one, and someone was talking about, I've never used it, I don't know what it's like. So, but there's a lot of new ones around.
There will be other ones, I'm sure. Yeah.
The ConvertKit is another one that people often use. Aweber, there's lots of them around.
And definitely try the free ones.
I was using Mad Mimi before Shah came and took over.
And Mad Mimi's cool. It's pricier. It has a less free option.
Very interactive, active though. Very easy, drag and droppy as we call it.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about was autoresponders. So I have, and I know so I can tag people. So this is what I like about Active Campaign. So I know where people are coming in from, because they, if it's the back of a book, they go to a specific website page, and I know that they've come from the back of the first book in my series, or I just do second to onwards. I don't. So I know if they've come from the Dragon series, I know if they've come from the Demon series or the Carnival. They've got a tag on them. So if I wanted to, I could just send an email to people who are.
So if someone just replies, what is your autoresponder to someone who just signed up?
So they've just signed up. I have a series of about 5 different emails, I think it is. I redid it all when I signed back in with Active Campaign at the end of last year. I so they've always been promised something. So there's a freebie that they've promised, and it's different depending on the series. So it is a novella, a kind of a short story novella type thing that's for each of the series. So the first one will be, here's your free content, hope you enjoy it. The next one is along the same lines, but I'm encouraging them to think about the series. So I've written it in a way. So for example, the Carnival series is like, I'll talk about the second book and the characters in the second book, and did you know, and blah, blah, blah. And here's a link to, what I'm trying to do is I'm giving them free content to start with, because I want them to feel, none of that interaction in the autoresponder is go buy my book, because that's not what's going to encourage them to stay on my list. So it's all kind of free content. I've got like short stories that I give them, and I'll give them one in one email, and the next email, that kind of thing. I also, my favorite bit is the last email that they get is a questionnaire, not a questionnaire, it's like a quiz, and it's, what kind of supernatural creature are you? And I get the most interaction from that one. It's really funny. People were like, I'm a dragon. And I just did, like, it took me, I don't know how long, but it was like, A, B, C, or D. And it's like, when you go on holiday, do you like to go somewhere hot? Or do you like to hide away or do you like to sit at the end of a rainbow with your pot of gold? Or do you, and it's like, I had 4 things. I think it was like a dragon, maybe a demon, a leprechaun, and something else. I can't remember what the other one was. And they were just silly questions, and there were silly answers, and and people love it. And they're like, right back, I'm a bit of a dragon, but also a leprechaun, and like, it's just funny. But anyway, so I just did all of that. It was just all about creating this environment and I took when I used to do them, when I started doing my autoresponders, I was always like, oh, I'm Trudy, and I live in New Zealand, and this is my daughter, and this is us doing this. And I just don't think people are that interested, especially when they're just joining your list. So now I try to make it about the stories and about the books and about, you know, that kind of interaction, and thinking about the kind of person who is joining and reading my books and the things that they might think is fun and funny. And that's why I incorporated like the what did I just call it? A quiz. So that's it. So that's the autoresponder. And
another quiz could be, what kind of chocolate do you like? Because you know that people love your giveaway. So.
Exactly, that's a good point. I should do that. And then while they're on that autoresponder series, they have a tag on them, and I think it's something like newbie in automation or something. And then as soon as they get the last email from that, there's a pause of like about 3 or 4 days, and then that tag gets taken off. And then they go into the main list, and it's all happening in the background. I don't have to worry about any of that. And then they're hopefully, if they've clicked on a few things, they should come into either Superfans or Mailerlite. Should be Superfans at the start, and then it goes on from there. So that's my list and how that sort of starts out. I wanted to talk about the header thing that you talked about, Shah. So I had a beautiful header on my thing, and I love that header. And it just, I think
so by that we're talking an image that when you open the newsletter, it's the top big image that stretches right across.
So I started trying out not putting the header in, and I got a way better open rate without the header. My beautiful header that made it all look nice. No. So I've stopped using that now, and I just have I do have like a little slightly bigger, it's something that links to the subject line. So if the subject line says, do you feel like dancing with some demons or whatever, I don't know, then it says, you know, something that interacts, you know, is the same, leads on from that.
So it's a text heading as opposed to a graphic heading.
It's like it's often a different color or something, but it's still a text heading versus the and I've started trying to put fewer links and fewer images in those emails, because again they can create problems. I think David Goffin told us that you shouldn't have too many links. It just makes it look spammy. So I don't.
It's hard not to though when you very hard. If you've got your book you're talking about, join my website, here's my Facebook group, suddenly you're up there, and it's and I try to make it just one thing that I want them to do each email, and I find that works better. So if I want them to, and it's one book, often I'll just be talking about one book. So for example,
do you give them a free book straight second time up, or do when they first autoresponder is a free book?
It's not. I don't have books. I have novellas usually. So they don't. So it'll be like the Carnival series has the origin novella. The Demon series. Well, I've just written a novella that's going to become the thing for that. And the Dragon series, I've got about 3 or 4 short stories, and I've just written a novella for that too. So it's just. And I mean, so I do things like I give them the first 5 chapters of the next book and things like that. So if they've signed up through a Dragon book, then they'll get something for free first off, but then I'll give them the first 5 chapters of the second book and kind of try and leave it that first 5 chapters at a really hooky point, so that they really want to find out what happens next, and then do that kind of thing. So they're still getting free content, but it's trying to encourage them into participating and buying more stuff, but it's still in a sneaky way, hopefully. So I've done competitions, like I said, for books and prizes, and I think of that less of deliverability stuff. I mean, Shah was talking about how it's really good to get the clicks and that kind of thing, and it is. She's right, obviously it is, but I think of it more as community building and kind of creating that kind of link to me and my readers when I'm doing it. So I'm not worried about spikes in numbers of sales. I just want them to sort of feel like they're part of a community around me, so that when I do have books, you know, new releases and things like that, they'll feel more inclined, or they'll remember me more. And that's part of my decision to do weekly, was putting myself out there in their minds. Like I don't until you said that about clicking, I was thinking to myself, it doesn't even matter if they're not clicking on anything, because I'll just send this excerpt, and I don't really care if they go nowhere. I mean, I'll often maybe send it.
And look, to be honest, for some people, they're looking for new release news from their favourite authors, and they might not even open the email, but if they see, here's their new release in the subject line, new release, you know, whatever book, they'll go to Amazon and buy it without necessarily opening the email. So that's an argument against not doing too much cleansing.
Exactly, right? You never know quite what's going to happen, but you're just putting yourself in people's minds. I think that's the thing with a newsletter. The other thing I was going to say is that I always notice a spike in sales the day of or the day after that I have sent the email out, no matter what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not massive, but it's there.
But
so I know
good.
that
that's what you want to see.
Yeah, right. So it is happening, and it is an ongoing thing, and I'm not seeing no reaction is kind of what the point is. And so I was going to say, I get up to, I don't have as good an open rate as Wendy's 70%, but I can get up to sort of 40-50%.
Which is still remarkably good, by the way.
Yeah.
To be honest, anything over 30, I think, is good for an author.
Yeah. I mean, but my interactive people are not that high, to be fair. So that's the thing. That's why it's beneficial to me to have them separated out like that, so that I can say. And some stuff I'll just send to the superfans because I know that they're more engaged and they're more interested in some stuff and things like that. So I don't send recipes because I don't feel like it's the right part of my brand. I don't send. I mean, sometimes I send silly stuff like me and Zoe dressing up for Halloween or things like that, or things that, but I've just kind of gotten to the point where I think actually people are on this list because they like the reading and they're interested in the books, and they may be interested slightly in me being quirky and interesting, but I don't know. I'm just don't feel that that's, I don't know. I don't know why. I just don't want to. Maybe I have used book sweeps for gaining readers, and I wanted to say something because so remember I talked about before about how there were suddenly 40 authors that were now emailing them. You'd get a massive list. Like at one point, I got something like 7,000 people from one of those. It wasn't a book sweeps one, I don't think, but then they're getting these 40 authors in it, and half those, well, more than that, most of those people are going to disappear or never open your emails again, versus book sweeps. And I did one of them recently, and I got,
that's Ryan Z, right?
Yeah, Ryan Z. And I got about it was for urban fantasy. I can't remember if it was specifically urban fantasy or just anyway, and I got 500 subscribers. But what happened is that they have it's changed now because of GDPR, and they had a list of all the authors there, and the people entering the competition had to tick which authors they'd be interested in hearing from. And I was really impressed by that. I thought that's such a better way to do it.
Yes.
So you don't have to get suddenly this 40 people. You get the ones that you wanted to hear from.
Yeah.
And for me as an author, I'd much rather have someone tick that than every single sodding person.
Self-selecting,
Yeah. So I just was really impressed. So I got this 500 people, and they are interacting, and they are really good, solid emails.
So going back to that number talk we had before, those 500 are more valuable to you than the 7,000 on the other one, even though you think, oh gosh, that's
Yeah, I mean, I have had up to 12,000 people on my list, and all it did was cost me lots of money.
I was going to say, if you've got a list now with 7,000 people on the platform that you're using, that would cost you so much money. You'd have to go up to the next tier, and for what? For them to just start unsubscribing.
Exactly, for a lot of cold people. And that's what you've got to remember, is like they're really cold subscribers, those ones you get from those groups like that. You have to work on them and integrate them into your list and kind of treat them slightly differently.
And there are always those people who want to get a freebie. They'll just come in and sign up, get the freebie, and they'll just,
and that's fine. You don't want unsubscribes are amazing. Like I think there's this kind of fear of like, I don't want them unsubscribing, and I think no, you absolutely. If someone does not want to be on your list, you get rid of them. Like they can unsubscribe.
It's not personal. It's not a personal attack. And it could be that they're just changing their email address, or they're getting, and I know myself in my emails, you get messages every single day from a lot of retailers. It becomes overwhelmed. The number of times I've purchased, but even just they read one of your books, or they think they're interested and then they're not. That's fine. They don't have to love your books. What you want is the people who do love your books and the people who are interested, and that's kind of what you want on that list.
And also, I think that if you're starting out with, I'm sure we've said this before, that getting a list like from Ryan Z or somewhere, a reputable place like that, when you're starting out, is actually okay. It's just going to start you off, as long as you don't expect every single one of them to stay, because it's just not going to happen.
And you may not have the higher open rates, and you may not have that engagement because it's a different kind of list. So it's
but
okay.
It's not a bad idea to start off with a couple of hundred and just go from there.
Exactly.
Because you'll change your style as you go, as we've all done, what feels comfortable.
As you growth wise, everything changes.
You evolve, don't you?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Penny Reed does this really well, Maria Lewis talked to us about doing it, is doing a story, a chapter by chapter kind of story in your newsletter. And they actually separated it out, and I don't know whether that was for some kind of technical reason, or whether it's some people don't want it or not, but like having a short, like a novella or a story, like Penny Reid did it for one of the books, and she later released the book, but she wrote it chapter by chapter, and you could get it each week, and people were waiting for the installment, and they read it and they loved it, and they were keeping on going and going through it. For me as a reader, that sounds like my worst nightmare. I just want to read the whole book. Yes. I waited and got the whole book when she published it on Amazon and didn't mind paying for it. But there are a lot of people who are really into that, and that worked really well for them. Maria talked about it, and I've heard Penny talk about it too, saying how it worked for them. So that's just another idea for something to think of if you're worried about content, if you've got a story that you can release. And it doesn't mean that you can't put it up on Amazon and, release it again, because it's different people and different, and that, I think, is me, and that was all I had to say.
Very good. Very good.
Oh, thank you, Wendy.
That was me being positive, true.
Yeah, good work. I noticed that.
Covered quite a lot, and
we have covered a lot
into how we work, and take it or leave it, or take bits from all.
And that's the thing. As we always say, each of us run things differently, and we do different things in different ways, and that's okay. And
genre too will dictate difference. You know, readers are different in different genres of what they love and what they don't. Like, the cozies are into all of the cozy cooking and little small town stuff, and we've got the dragon.
And mine won't. Mine won't. No. Well, I mean, maybe, but I doubt it.
And maybe how you feel about technology as well might play a part in
absolutely.
You go down.
I think that's a big thing, is the idea of the barriers. Like when Shah was talking about some of the things that she splits it up and does it, and I was just like, actually, that just sounds really difficult, and I don't think I'd ever do it if I had to do it that split in that way. So if the idea of a newsletter is too much or too big, just simplify it down and just make it as basic as you need it to be, and just get that out and just start that interaction. And
to be fair, most authors starting are writing in one, when they start off anyway, you usually got one or two books in one genre, and so that's cool. Let's start there, don't, and
awesome.
I overthink everything, so don't use use me as an example. I was just going to say, in the show notes we'll put the links to Maria Lewis, Larissa Reynolds, and Tammy Lebrecht has got a we've done podcasts with them, but also Tammy has a book called The Newsletter Ninja, which is recognised as kind of a really great resource for people starting off with newsletters. And if you want to join a newsletter, come and join the Spa Girls newsletter, and you'll see how we do it. So we send it out through Mailchimp, and it's a free account because we don't have 2,000 people subscribing,
or even 1,000,
or even 1,000. So what we do is it's a way of obviously telling people about our latest episode, but we also each Tuesday on Facebook we write a writer's life, and we take a turn each week. We take a turn at doing once a month or so of writing that, and so we repurpose what we post on Facebook, because the reality is, while we've got several hundred followers on Facebook, only a tiny percentage of those people are actually seeing those writing life posts. So we repurpose that, we put it in our newsletter, not because we're lazy, but because it's stuff that we've written from our hearts, exposing a vein that week, and it goes out to our newsletter people. And we've started doing that. I think we started like last year doing it weekly, and it's worked really, really well. It's really seen an increase in our listens and our interaction and all of that. So you can repurpose things for your newsletter that you've posted on Facebook.
That's good advice. And you can repurpose it in multiple ways, right? Like this, and just don't assume that everyone is the same audience is the big point.
I think it's really easy to assume, first of all, that people read newsletters like you yourself do, and we've said this a few different podcasts. Don't assume everybody's the same as you. Don't. So I mean, So don't. And secondly, don't assume that everybody's already seen it once. Because chances are, if you've posted something on Facebook, they haven't seen it. Chances are.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So I think that is us. That is
SparGirlsPodcast.com.
Oh, yeah.
Subscribe.
Well done. Yes.
Good work, Shah. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. I feel like we should sing the Muppet song to get us out of here.
The teddies are here.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll just leave it there then. We'll see you again another week. But for now, that is us.
Bye.
Well, bye.
Bye.